Well, good evening, and welcome. And I want to thank you so much for joining me this Thursday evening, the 31st of October 2024, the end of October 2024. The end of October signifies some fantastic thing which is supposed to happen. When I say fantastic things, you're going to have the leadership of the Conservative Party, where everyone would know who's going to be the new Conservative leader. The end of October, right into November, you're going to have the new president of America. Well, could it be Kamala Harris or could it be Donald Trump as well? But also tonight, it on the eve of October the 31st, well, we're knocking on the doors, calling it Halloween. Well, as Usain Bolt said, we are Jamaicans, we're in a dopey business. That's a little picture which goes around there, you know. But anyhow, children are knocking on doors as well. Somebody said on TikTok says Kamala. But of course, we have the major budget recently, and we're going to talk about that tonight with my two guests, Garry Graham and joined with Mr. Anthony Francis, Mr. Pinky Planet Do It Now. And let's get going. And let's just start the show. Yeah. Well, good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I don't know. Let me see if I can find out what is that sound which is coming. Garry, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm fantastic. Okay, I can hear some good feedback. Anthony, how are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Sylbourne. Thanks for having me on the show again, and nice to see Garry again. I love your new apartment, Garry. Things are going well.
Thank you very much, Tony. I haven't seen you for how long now? Almost a year, or is it over a year now?
Yeah, well, that's how fast time flies when you're having fun. Clearly, it's been it's been a great year for you. Obviously, moving to California, it's the same place as Richie.
well, I heard Richie was saying that he's gonna be enjoying the life after Parliament and after leadership. He's still going to be a member of Parliament, and he said he's going to be in the sunshine where the actors are, looking at the countryside, looking at the site. And then I was thinking he was talking about California, but he said he's going to stay in Yorkshire, going to stay in Yorkshire as well. Anyway, Michelle, I'm going to ask you, Michelle, are you there? I'm just going to ask you if you can hear any feedback at the same time. Hear a sort of feedback. Let me know if you can hear any feedback. Maybe just coming back from me as well. Garry, are you hearing any feedback? Are you hearing any feedback?
Yes, I am. I don't know where it's coming from.
Yes. Okay, good. I will try to sort that out after. But anyway, first of all, the budget, the UK budget. Rachel Reeves, mother budget that you were talking about. What do you guys take on that? Anthony, if you start first, and then I'll try to solve what is this problem with the sound. Yeah.
Okay. So we've had the first Labour budget in 14 years, as Rachel Reeves likes to keep reminding us, and we've also had the first UK budget by a female chancellor, which also is something that we should celebrate, because it shows that, as she said, any young girl looking up and seeing somebody in that position, it enables them to dream and to sort of see what can be achieved in the same way that Richie was Prime Minister. So I think all of the sort of events need to be celebrated, and we need to be thankful for. But in terms of the budget itself, I think we're all slightly shocked by the amount of borrowing that Rachel Reeves has unleashed over this next Parliament. And I think what is surprising, given that none of this borrowing was mentioned in their manifesto, it's a bit of a shock to most people. And I think the key surprise to many is, and has been also mentioned by the Prime Minister, was this reference to certain people being not working people. and that the tax increases that she's announced would not directly impact working people, because she specifically said we wouldn't put up VAT, tax, or national insurance. But in fact, what she has done stealthily is she's in fact done exactly that. In fact, to be honest, she would have been better off putting up VAT, tax, or insurance, because what she's done, she's actually put up the national insurance for employers who have to actually then go out and recruit staff. And so what they're now going to do is not recruit as many staff because of all the extra funding or extra costs that they'll have to associate. So in a sense, what she's done is by putting such a massive tax on the employers, they themselves now have to try and find a way of still being able to actually run their businesses, but with potentially less staff, because they simply can't afford to take on board the apprentices and maybe pay some of the salaries to those who are already there because of the increased costs that they're going to now incur. So for me, I think it was something that should have been up front if they were going to make these sort of big tax increases. They didn't do it. And I think, to be honest, it shows that in the first opportunity where she could have been shown as a chancellor who had a very clear vision of what she was going to do, she's shown herself really to be deceitful.
Yeah, and one of the key things there, grateful that the sound is gone now, I sort of fix it, is that it is going to filter down. It's like it's going to hit. It said we are committed not to hit working people. I guess the question is, who is working people? That's the definition they were trying to work out. Who is working people at the same time, and therefore it's going to filter down directly or indirectly upon people, isn't it, Garry?
Well, I mean, I think Tony Anthony has answered that question. I mean, it hasn't shocked me to tell you the truth, because what Mr. Reeves has done is what the Labour Party would have done anyway. The Labour Party, in my estimation, has always given or always done. Well, that's not what I want to say. The Labour Party has always increased taxes. They always raised taxes. You see, what we've got to understand, either on both parties, they put out their dream plan. They've got a manifesto that which they want to accomplish, what they want to see, what they want to do. That's fine. But how could a Labour Party, knowing that what they had, well, they didn't know what they had to face when they get in, and they promised no tax increase, and that's the first thing they've done. They've done a lot of U-turns, and I think that is what's disappointed the country, because the Labour Party has said a lot of what they wouldn't do, and now they've had to do it. And I just think that I just feel sorry for us, the middle class, and those who are below the middle class to some extent, that they're really going to be hurt. They're going to be hurt.
Yeah. But was there any sort of plus in at the same time? Because when it started off really with the niceness. We're going to spend on this. We're going to spend on this. We're going to spend on this, and then there's some positives in it at the same time. There's some positives regarding this budget. Is it all doom and gloom? 40 billion.
Well, it's not all doom and gloom. I think what has been announced, some of the things that have been announced, such as, for example, providing funding for the NHS and some of the local services. I mean, these are initiatives that needed to be funded. You know, providing or setting aside, should I say, funding to pay the Horizon scandal for the post office. Yep. Also, the blood infected situation that's going back decades now. These are things that really should have, have been kicked down. The can's been kicked down the road, not for years, but for decades. And really, it's unbelievable that we're still talking about the blood scandal when, you know, the people who were affected have since died, and we're now talking about their, you know, their beneficiaries. So I think those individuals, they need compensation, and compensation now. And if she has ring-fenced, you know, multi-billion pounds worth of resource to pay for them, then I think that's a good thing, because, you know, those people have been wronged. But I think so that's the positive side of the budget, her announcing those things, and also the funding for the NHS, which we know was well needed. But I think, you know, the main thing is you know, she's targeting working class people right across the board, as Garry has said. I mean, you know, you can't go after putting VAT on private schools. I mean, you know, people are simply trying to, those who have the funds to send their children to private schools. And I should also point out that, you know, quite a number of people in the Labour Party send their children to private schools. One particular person is Diane Abbott, who sends her son to private school, right? So you've got a situation here where, you know, the Labour Party are knocking people who send their children to private school, yet a lot of their own MPs do exactly the same thing. So I think there's a double standards from Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer that the public are now seeing, and they're suddenly realizing, you know, 3 months into their tenure, that actually what they have said in their manifesto and what they were saying or criticizing of the Conservatives, they're actually playing the same game.
Yeah. Some of the key pointers that came out of the budget, which I was looking at earlier, like some of what are some of the key points at glance. It talks about the rates of income tax and national insurance paid by employees that remains unchanged. Income tax band threshold to rise in line with inflation after 2028, preventing more people being dragged into higher bands as wage rises. Basic rate capital gain tax on profits from selling shares to increase from 10% to 18%, with a higher rate rising from 20% to 24%. Inheritance tax threshold freezes extended by further 2 years to 2030, with unspent pensions plot, and exemptions when inheriting farmland to be made less generous from 2026. Now, all of these seem to be pushed back to 2020, 30, and 2028. Anthony, what is the rationale behind those?
Well, it's a simple rationale. She's kicking it down the road for a few years until the next general election, and it becomes the Conservatives' problem when they then get elected. You know, this is what they do all the time. Both parties do this. They try and make savings or cuts, and they sort of try to balance the books by saying, you know, this will happen now and this will happen then. But a lot of the things they're doing are later on down the line. And, you know, the reason why she couldn't put up national insurance or NI for employees is because she's hit a double whammy by putting it on the employers, who are obviously going to filter it down to the employees anyway. So, you know, for me, what she's done very cleverly, or not as the case may be, stealthily, she's kicked the can down the road 4 years into the future. Because let's face it, that's when the next general election will be, you know, people will be talking about that then. And then that's when those sort of things will come into play. So it's all political. They're all, you know, both parties play these games. But I think the losers are the workers, you know, the ordinary folk like you and I, and Garry, of course, who will have to pick up the pieces for all of this this nonsense. And, you know, of course, we do know that you can't borrow or promise things to people without having funding. So we know the NHS costs a lot of money. We know that defence costs money. We know all the other things cost money. Yeah. So I think what the Labour should have been is upfront and truthful, so as, you know, they weren't then misleading us now when they've come in and they've hit us with £40 billion of tax increases.
Do you think this? Do you think this somehow increase the whole apathy in people to trust, government, in view of the fact that the manifesto is not lining up with what it is? They say all these different things to get into power, and once they're there, it's like it's a slap in the face to a certain extent. I mean, I'm going to play a clip of Rishi Sunak earlier when he says that right through leading up to the election, he was saying they're going to increase tax, they're going to increase tax, but people are just was more focused on getting rid of the conservative, getting rid of the conservative. That's what they were more focusing on. You know.
Well, the funny thing is, Richie was right when he also mentioned what would happen with Liz Truss when she was going to promise in all of her different shenanigans. He said what the outcome would be, and he said what Labour would do, and he's been proven right. And you have to remember that Rishi Sunak was, a very clever guy. He may not have been the most popular, but he was somebody of high morals and high values. And he certainly knew his stuff around the economics of the country in terms of, being a chancellor and then being the prime minister. And he could see what was going to happen here. And he foretold that the Labour Party, when they got into power, would do exactly this. And he's been proven right.
Garry, should they bring back Rishi Sunak?
You see, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think, you see, everybody coming out of COVID, coming out of austerity, when the truth is being told, sometimes when the truth is being told, because of all that has been going on through the smoke, through the haze, through the fog, they're not focused on the truth, just like what you were saying. Rishi told them that he'll have to raise taxes. If he came in, taxes would have to be raised, as you so rightly pointed out. But because of everything that was going on, obviously they're not going to see that. The country could not see that. The country was more focused on getting him out. Why? Because it was banded left, right, and center that they did not elect him. That was the focus. They didn't elect him. The Conservative Party had, is it 3 leaders, 3 leaders? It seemed that they were more in disarray than anything else. So obviously, they were more focused on removing him. Then obviously you had the members of his party that were either resigning or switching parties. I mean, who really wants that? So really, the Labour Party didn't have a clue what was going on. I didn't really have any confidence in them, really, to tell you the truth. Because what they are, as I've said before, what they're doing now is they've always done. Anytime they get into government, they raise taxes. So this is so it's not strange.
Yeah. Let me just play this. Let me just play this clip here.
Tax rises they promised the working people of this country they would not do. National insurance up, capital gains tax up, inheritance tax up, energy taxes up, business rates up, first time buyer stamp duty up, pensions tax up. They have fiddled the figures. They don't like it, Mr. Speaker. They don't like it, Madam Deputy Speaker. They don't like it, but this is the truth. They have fiddled the figures. They have raised tax to record levels. They have broken their promises, and it is the working people of this country that are going to pay the price.
Listening to Rishi Sunak and his goodbye speech and everything like that, I could see some people looking back and said, this guy wasn't bad actually. Even dealing with the bit during the COVID, the furlough, it is like all of these factors are not like taken into consideration that they did that good. They did some good job at the same time, isn't it, Andrew? And is there a 20 billion black hole? It's a black hole.
Well, no, let's just for your listeners clarify one thing straight away. There was never a £20 billion black hole. What there was potentially was a £10 billion promise to sort out certain pay disputes, which the Conservatives did not resolve. But the amount it would come to actually approve those pay disputes was, I think, from what I understand, was around sort of 8.9 to 9 billion. So what the Labour Party chose to do was they chose to actually pay that money. So by them doing that, they actually then incurred £10 billion of costs, which had to be found. So that's the reason why they keep on saying there was a £20 billion black hole. There wasn't. Potentially, what there really was maybe a £10 billion black hole as a consequence of these pay disputes that hadn't been settled. So Labour chose to create some of this this sort of sleight of hand by including these figures and then suddenly saying there was 20 billion. But going back to your question about Rishi Sunak, I believe very sincerely that I think he was a very competent minister, chancellor and prime minister. And I think that a number of Conservative MPs will, as they say, sadly, the better the devil you know, they will wish they had him when the new leader comes in, not because he or she may not be very good, but they'll see that his performance at the dispatch box was actually very competent. I mean, you could see even in his final dispatch box with Keir Starmer here, he was on point on everything. He was articulate, and he really sort of gave a good account of himself. And this is what the Conservative Party are going to miss. And you're right, what Garry said, they got rid of him. Not for him being competent. I think people were bored with 14 years of Conservatives. Yeah. But also, sadly, the Conservatives were more concerned about their own survival and their own positioning. Individuals wanting for certain jobs, and they forgot about the electorate. And as a consequence, they lost. But what we also have to remember, before you go on to Garry, is don't forget that the Labour won with the lowest vote, which means that actually not many people really wanted Labour. If the Conservatives hadn't been bickering between themselves, they probably would have won. But it's a bit like Brexit. If we didn't talk down, if Brexit wasn't spoken down, and we had people like Farage and co talking about 300 million coming back to the NHS every week and having that bus going around, people were misled by all that rubbish. Right? If they actually just sort of took 5 minutes to look at the big picture, because no one's talking about a £300 million a week bus now, are they? Where's the bus? Right? So this is the reality that we're dealing with.
Well, I must say I'm grateful for the NHS. At the same time, I was there doing my cataract operation, and people say, "Did you wait long?" No, it wasn't long. Everything was just spot on. And the hospital, it was so clean. St. Thomas Hospital, you could eat your breakfast off the ground. I must say.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
I'll leave that to you, Sylbourne.
But Garry, on the point about Rishi Sunak, we spoke about Rishi Sunak many times before, and you set out your analogy as to what you believe is going to happen, and you saw it happen there. And when you see and hear of him now and how his last days were at the dispatch box, what's your sort of viewpoint and your recollection of Rishi Sunak? Because he's gone now. I mean, the next leader is gonna. I just got the letter. It's gonna be the polls are now closed, and then we know the person by Saturday. Yeah.
Really, I have personally, for me, I have nothing but praise for Rishi, because I agree 101 with what Anthony has said, all that he has said up until now. I think that Rishi brought back a bit of competency, respect, and the order of business back to government when he came in. I think he's done his best. He did his best. I'm not saying that he was perfect in everything that he did, in everything that he said, but he brought back a bit of respect and the work of governmental business back to the office of the Prime Minister. I really think it was during a very difficult time. Very difficult time when you got one who they termed him as a buffoon. Me, it was said out there. Then you have mistrust coming in and doing what she did, almost, crippling the economy of the United Kingdom. And then Rishi having to come in and kind of draw everything together, put a bit of sensibility back into government. I mean, who could really? I mean, I don't think there's anybody that could probably come in under that difficult time and really do what he did. I think he was made particularly for the job for that time. Again, he's done a splendid job. It's a pity they would look beyond Richie. They look beyond his culture, look beyond the color of his skin, look beyond even how he got there. Yes, okay, fine. The parliamentary, his colleagues that put him in there. But we've got to move beyond the point now. Look beyond who the person is as such, visibly, and look at what he is doing. Look at see what he has done. And he was so honest. The point here, and nobody's really capitalizing on this. And you made the point. Let me go back over it. He was so honest to the electorate, to the country, to say we're going to have to raise taxes. The people didn't want to hear it. Honesty seems to be going through the door. It just seems to be walking out, and nobody's stopping that quality that it seems is being missing amongst leadership. We're gonna have to do certain things. That is leadership. Leadership is saying what people do not want to say, or others they're stepping out. They're doing things that others do not want or don't think it should be done, but it needs to be done. That's leadership. That is true leadership. And I think that Rishi really ought to be given whatever accolade could be given him. And again, you're right, whoever, I think it was either yourself, Sylbourne, or anything that said that later on, the Conservative leadership is going to look back at how he delivered himself at the dispatch box.
Yes.
What he said, how he handled the questions, and even look back even further to how well he kept the United Kingdom together politically. I don't think people really understand that. I don't think they're really seeing what Rishi did by bringing some respect back amongst when he stood. He's not the tallest, of leaders. He's certainly not. But he brought back some credibility back to the United Kingdom, back amongst world leaders. And he was able to stand toe-to-toe with certain individuals to bring some solidarity and meaningful back, into politics, British politics.
This is a good point. This is a good point to go on to the prospective leader of the Conservative Party. But I want to go to Anthony. Anthony, in light of the budget, what are people supposed to do now or to say in regards to this budget now? What are working persons to do now? I mean, it's upon us anyhow. But what's the advice to persons?
Well, personally, the advice I would give to anybody out there would be to really be very diligent with your finances, because the next couple of months and years are going to be quite difficult, I think, because the government has put pressure on employers, and employers have got a difficult choice now to make. They're going to be looking at their bottom line and their overheads in order to make a profit. Because don't forget, these employers are the entrepreneurs. They are the people who create business. And these are the people now who are going to have to pick up the load because that's what the Labour Party and the Chancellor has now put on them. And they're going to have to cut their cloth accordingly. And the only way they can do that is by reducing costs, which means people, or reducing wages, which means that if wages go down and prices go up, we've then got this inflation again, which is what we've been talking about. So, for me, the advice I would give right now is I would say to anybody listening to this, if you do have a job right now, if you are working, that I would set aside funds where possible for as a safety net for savings. I would be careful on what you spend, because clearly prices are going to go up. You will see certain companies reducing their investment in employees. So for me, I think the next sort of year is going to be quite a difficult period, and that people need to sort of make sure that they look after their finances and make sure that they cut out any unnecessary spending that they don't necessarily need, and cut back so that they can make sure they've got the appropriate resources to look after themselves if they find themselves out of work, or if they find that the rise they thought they were going to get, they know that they're no longer going to get. That's the advice I would give. I would say right now it's all about saving.
And also what some people are saying, actually, I think some of the reporters or some of the punters were talking about interest rate. There was a thinking about interest rate being cut at least twice by the end of the year, but they're saying now at least it's going to be one. It may not now, isn't it?
There's going to be no interest rate cut now.
I
mean, how can you have an interest rate cut when you've got so much? So when you've got debt, it's going to be rising through the roof.
So much, and new borrowing strategy.
The borrowing's gone through the roof. So and also the onus is on the employers, which means they're going to be cutting back. So in terms of and also the other, and don't forget, we're not talking about the employer issues. We're talking about the other levers that she's also pulled with regard to taxes and other fiscal things that she's done that's going to come back to bite some of these people.
Yes.
So for me personally, I don't see there being an interest case. There certainly won't be two. If there's one, it might just be because the Bank of England have seen something in the economy. But right now, from what I see in the markets since the budget has been given yesterday, they're all going north.
Wow. Garry, any last word on that bit before I jump on to the leadership?
No, I think Anthony has done well to cover.
Yes. We just spoke about Rishi Sunak, and we just spoke about the Conservative leadership, and we talk about leadership now. What's your take on where do we see Saturday? Saturday, there's going to be named Robert Jenrick or Kemi Badenoch as the new Conservative leader, because one of the things people are saying is that they should have actually let them go to the dispatch box at least twice. Robert Jenrick and then Kemi Badenoch as a sort of testing period while Rishi Sunak was the leadership, but that didn't take place. But what's your take on these guys in a sense of leadership qualities? I'll go for you, Anthony. We have not, and Garry has talked about this before, but your take on these guys, Anthony. What are you going to?
Well, for me personally, but both these individuals come with their own different baggage and their own different personalities and style of what they potentially will bring, if and when they become leader on Saturday. And we can't prejudge them because, like Rishi Sunak, who came literally out of nowhere when you think about it.
Yes.
And then became became the surprise chancellor, and then became the surprise prime minister. And we've just been saying how well he's done. So there's no reason why one of these two individuals themselves may turn out to be a very good and competent person. But I think the one thing that Richie didn't have was any baggage. The only thing people could criticize Richie for was the fact that his family were quite wealthy. But that wasn't a bad thing. That was entrepreneurial. That was his wife's parents, and Richie being a smart guy. I think with these two, because of their time in the Conservative Party, and they have been had senior roles in the party, people perhaps have already formed a judgment on them. And so personally, I don't have any preference for either of them, and I wouldn't have gone for any of them anyway. As a personal preference, I would have gone for maybe another candidate who's now already out of it. So I think the Conservative Party have now got themselves in this position, and the leader and the party are now going to select one of them. The only thing I hope that will happen is that they actually stand by this leader for the duration of the Parliament, and not suddenly do what they have done with every other leader and suddenly start finding ways to undermine them and to talk about a leadership election again, because this is what's caused them to be out of government, and this is what's caused the general public to sort of turn their back on them through all this bickering. So I hope whoever becomes the leader has the full backing and support, and we don't hear of leadership elections in the Conservative Party, at least for the duration of this whole Parliament.
And this 1922 committee, what you're talking about is that every time they keep jumping back to this 1922 committee.
Well, personally, I think the 1922 committee, the real thing that annoys me at Sylbourne is this 1922 committee and the person who was the leader of it. I'm not sure if he's still the leader of it or if he stepped down in the last election.
A new person is there now, yeah.
Sorry?
A new person is now there for the leadership.
So, yeah, okay. So for me, this is the thing which is quite annoying. Two things. One is the 1922 committee always seems to sort of be the people who decide who the new leader should be, or they have this sort of secret poll, but they never put themselves forward to be the leader. So that, that's one thing that always annoys me, that they always seem to position themselves as being, key players in the Conservative Party, kingmakers and all the rest of it, but they won't put themselves forward to the public or to the party for the leadership of the party. So I don't quite understand that. And the second thing is, they shouldn't really have any say, because the people who are the most important is the electorate. And if the electorate, depending on if one of these two individuals become the leader and they get selected, like what's happened with Keir Starmer, then they should be allowed to simply carry on and lead their party without this constant
battering.
Unless, of course, the person is completely incompetent, like in Liz Truss's case, where she had to go. But that's what's caused them their biggest downfall, and I hope that the new leader doesn't have to deal with that going forward.
Yeah, that's correct, because David Cameron, the time when David Cameron came forth, David Cameron never had much experience. He was just part of the party. And when he came and made that speech, and then he had that 4 years to build himself leading up to the election. And I believe either Kemi or Robert Jenrick should be given that opportunity as well. And it's very important that the Conservative Party or membership should really just fall in line behind, unless, as you say, you realize that they're totally incompetent. Garry, what's your say? Am I much clearer now? I don't know. I'm hearing some good distorted sound. Is it much clearer, Garry and Anthony?
You're very clear to me, Sylbourne.
Okay, Garry. Yes, Garry. So what's your take now, Garry, as to what we're saying? Who do you believe is going to be the leader, and what's your take on their prospects?
I don't think we should ever have gotten to this stage. And really, to tell the truth, I don't. I hear what has been said, that that Rishi was an unknown quantity to some extent. He didn't have any baggage other than who he was as an individual within the business world, which is okay. That's fine. And again, it's not that we must always choose someone or choose individuals that are always known. Sometimes the talent is out there, and we have to use people and take a chance with individuals. So I'm very much aware of that. But I think I don't have a pull. None of those two that have been chosen, more or less, had any kind of effect on me to really I was having a big feedback there. None of them really grabbed me that they would be good leaders of the Conservative Party. I think it's too early. I think it's far too early. More could have been done to get Rishi to stay a little longer, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Um,
well, well. Just to let you know, they're talking about getting Boris back. You know that they're already talking about that.
yeah, but that would be the worst decision. If there's any worse, if
Mm,
there is something that the Conservative have done that they regret already, if
yeah.
they go back to Boris, that will supersede that decision will supersede any other bad decision they've made in the
Yeah.
past.
Yes.
That would be the death knell.
Yeah.
I
But
think
anyhow,
I think just on closing of this, Selborne,
yeah.
it's, and you threw the Boris question in there as a bit of a red herring, but I think what we're seeing now in politics is that it's the rise of the personalities. It's the rise of the sort of the personality influencer type person, because really Boris, I've said many times on this show when I've been invited that Boris is incompetent, and we all know that Boris is incompetent. But what he has got,
Mm,
but what Boris did have was a personality and a bit of flair about him that people seem to gravitate to, and that's the very same reason why, despite Donald Trump having a criminal record for being a rapist, for being all sorts of money, for trying to fiddle the election and all the rest of it, people for some unknown reason still seem hell-bound on voting for this guy. I mean, to be honest, he shouldn't even be on the ballot paper in America. I'm amazed that a country which is
yeah.
meant to be the great big US of A,
Yes.
they cannot find in the Republican Party another candidate that is actually better than Donald Trump. To me, that says a lot about politics today. That it's the rise of the personality and the influencer type person. Because let's face it,
Yeah.
we're talking about somebody who's a convicted felon, and you've got people wearing T-shirts saying, "I'm voting for the felon."
It's very interesting what you said there, because I believe that persons who are convicted or felons, they are not able to vote in America, aren't they?
Well, I don't know if they're not able to vote, but all I know,
Yeah.
I can't believe he's on the ballot paper,
Yeah.
Selborne.
Yes.
This is what's amazing me. America, meant to be the land of the free, meant to be the most powerful country in the world, and the Republican Party cannot find, out of all of their prospective senators and potential people who could run, the only person they can find is Donald Trump.
Well, listen, there's a lady in Jamaica who was a former Speaker of the House. Her name was Mistress Marisa Dalrymple Filbert. Um, she vacated her seat. Well, she stepped down from the Speaker because of some criminal, in response to criminal charges laid against her by the Integrity Commission. The Integrity Commission, Anthony, deal with integrity and people doing their declaration of interest. In her letter of resignation, she alluded to the damage to her reputation arising from the allegations, which remains unsolved as the court has made no determination regarding the charges. But guess what? There's now going to be a by-election, and guess who is going to be on the ballot? Guess. She has returned.
Well,
Because when hold on. Because when I asked the Prime Minister, what is this? How come she come back? He said, well, it's popular demand. Popular demand by the people. But at the same time, Anthony, the same position she was in then is the same position she is now.
yeah,
And
but
she's
but Selborne, that was also the same. There's an MP in London. I think it's Sharma, who's the MP for the mayor for East London,
yes,
and he was ousted, and then he came back again because he's very popular there. Everyone knows him. So
yes,
this is the problem with popular culture now that we have. And the reason why Richie, unfortunately, has had to fall on his sword due to the election defeat, one, because he's an honourable man, and also if you've had if you've called the election and you've lost, by default you tend to sort of step down anyway, which is what David Cameron did when he lost the Brexit vote. He didn't have to step down; he could have stayed on, but he decided to step down. But really, he could have stayed on, Richie. But Richie didn't have that personality. He didn't have that sort of that flamboyancy. As Garry said, he was more of a statesman. He actually got
yes,
things done. he had no baggage around him, and for some unknown reason, people couldn't gravitate to him because he spoke to them in a professional way. Whereas if you listen to Boris and Donald Trump, they just talk rubbish.
Yes. So therefore, what do you guys think the outcome then? Because November the 5th is going to be the big day. Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? They say it's very tight, depending on who you listen to.
I'll let Garry go first because I could rant on this all week. But Garry,
no, I mean, Anthony, you're hardly on the platform again. I don't know why, but anyway, you go ahead. I'm here. I'm listening to you. I like to listen to what you have to say. You go ahead.
well, for me, okay. So for me, sadly, I think that on this occasion, that Donald Trump might just sneak it past Kamala Harris. And the reason why I say this is because, there are two reasons why. I think one is that people have become a bit disillusioned with the Democrat Party under Biden. And I think that, again, like with the Conservative Party, they want to see change. And the change they want to see is they believe the rhetoric that Donald Trump is saying are things like, I'm going to sort out immigration. I would have got the Ukraine war done. I'm not going to pay any more of this. All that sort of bravado talk.
I cut fuel in half in 1 year. That's what he said again. Cut it in half.
He'll do all this stuff, right? I mean, you have to remember, we're talking about a man who doesn't pay any tax, right, on his own businesses, right? So you've got, as well as being a convicted felon, the guy's also a liar. But as well as, the issue that we got with Carmela, should I say, is that she didn't do herself any favors during the 4 years she's been the deputy, the vice president, right? So no one's really seen her, no one's heard of her. What has she done? I mean, to be honest, I want to vote for Kamala, but if someone said to me, Anthony, I'll pay you £1 million now, tell me what she's done during the 4 years of her vice presidency, I couldn't tell you. So that's what the Americans are also asking. So she's come out of nowhere with regards to people saying that Biden was becoming a bit of a liability. Okay, fair enough. His age was against him, but then you put Carmela there now, and I don't really know what she's done. She's had some good endorsements from the likes of Barack and from Beyonce and from other celebrity people,
and the boss Bruce Springsteen.
And Bruce Springsteen and all those sort of great things. But really, the backing that she really needs is from her electorate. And you go to some of these, you watch some of these Trump rallies, and you do see a lot of Black and Hispanic people there, and that group of people are gravitating to Trump for reasons that are simply beyond me. So I do believe it's going to be a very close call, as you said, Sylbourne. I'd like to feel that Carmela could win, but I in my heart, I think it's going to end up being Trump, and then the world is going to change overnight.
Don't you think at the same time that the president, I said this all a while, the president is subject to the presidency, that there's not far they can go from the swing. Take, for instance, Biden. Biden always kept saying, I'm told what to do. They tell me what to do. You see, America is still running, even though Biden is on the beach. There's a system in place there. And I believe Trump found that out as well. Barack Obama found that out as well. That there's a structure which is there that whether Kamala wins or Barack wins or Trump wins, there's a level of stability that is there, or you believe that
that's no different to the UK. It's called the civil service. It's called the infrastructure is always there. All that happens is they parachute somebody in who's the prime minister, and then he or she simply brings in a couple of troops who have been loyal to them, put them in some nice positions, and then they go around saying, it's a bit like if you listen to Angela Rayner from Labour saying we're gonna build 1 million houses. She's not. You're not going to build 1 million houses.
Everybody keeps saying that.
Angela Rayner has got more chance of building 1 million houses as I have going on Elon Musk's rocket to the moon next week. It's not going to happen, right? It's never going to happen, right? We haven't built 1 million houses for decades. So why are we going to do it now? Because she said so? I don't think so. So that's what I'm saying. The civil service is there, and the infrastructure is there for all governments, and they come in, and that's the reason why the Labour Party can just hit the ground running, because the civil servants in the background are doing all the hard work.
And one of the things that Richard Sunak had said as well is that the Labour government inherited a very strong, well, the economy was actually getting forward. I mean, much better. They said it was one of the best ones in Europe. The UK economy was progressing to a high level, Garry, what you said, Trump or Kamala, before we wrap up? Give the final word, Garry. Give us the word. You don't want to do that?
I mean, again, what has Kamala done? I mean, the word behind, or the word about Kamala, even when she was in California, is lock up the black man. They know her for locking up black people, and it's not good. That as a state attorney, that's not good. I mean, I don't know. And again, Anthony alluded to it also in relation to her being the vice president. What has she done in the last 4 years that people can speak of? Most people have just known her to be laughing.
Yeah. And I must say it's unfortunate though, because when she have these interviews and she's asked questions, she keeps saying, "Thanks for your question. I'm a middle class person," and you go, "Oh, please, just get to the point." But anyway.
Well, what I would say in closing, sorry to take the final word here, is this is the reason why Michelle didn't want the job. If Michelle had put herself forward, which is what a lot of people wanted, we know what the result would be. But Michelle was articulate. Michelle was someone who actually carved out a career while she was the wife of the president, Barack Obama. And despite Barack having a vice president, people knew more about Michelle's work because she was very outspoken and very proactive. And this is what Kamala should have done for herself while she was vice president. But she kept herself in a bunker, and now no one knows anything about her. So now she's having to sort of play catch up. Whereas Trump is saying, "Look at me, look at me, look what I'm, look what I've done, look what I'm going to do." And people have taken on that personality culture again, and she doesn't have that personality.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining. Garry, any last word, or that's it? Anthony got the last word. Anthony, listen, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and for sort of sharing with us. And of course, Anthony Francis is Mr. Think It, Plan It, Do It Now. That's the book. Make sure you guys get this book, and I'm going to show the book for you now. And there it is. Think It, Plan It, Do It Now. You can get it from Amazon. It simply says, and I'm going to promote it, it says, think it, you plan it, and you do it now within seconds. You don't wait until, "Oh man, I'm gonna think it. Oh, let me think and dream it first," right? Anthony, you can finish it off, Anthony.
Well, listen, you've hit the nail on the head there for me again. Thank you. The book isn't Think It, Plan It, Do It Later. It's a book to avoid procrastination, and if you want to get something done, the book is there as a guide to help you do so.
And if you go onto Amazon, you can get it as well, and follow Anthony as well. Think It, Plan It, Do It Now. And we had a show a couple of weeks ago on Black History. You can check it out on my YouTube channel as well. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining. Those on Facebook, those on YouTube, and those on TikTok. And let me see. I don't think TikTok, Instagram has shut me down today. I think we have all been clean. Yes, we have been clean. We've not been saying any words which are controversial. Anthony, they shut it down the other night. And TikTok the other day said, "Oh, we didn't like the word slave trade." That hashtag when we were talking about Black history. So they said me a violation. What can I say? Who knows? It's theirs, isn't it? I feel them space. All right. Peace out, guys. Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.